Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show.
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011,
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
with a focus on football.
Kansas City 31, San Francisco 20. Mahomes takes the snap. He's just going to throw it long for Demarcus Robinson. It is going to use up all the time. The game is over, and the Chiefs' kingdom has firmly planted its flag on top of football's highest summit. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 54.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffauf. So a little bit of a different opening for us there.
Yeah, but I like it.
Shorter, more concise, little cameos from my daughters at the beginning, and we got to completely and utterly delete the sound of the Patriots winning the Super Bowl.
Hopefully forever. So
Right,
I'm good with that.
Never again. That's never going to be posted on the site. At least that's the hope.
Yeah.
So welcome back to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays. Sitting next to me, Justin Raffauf.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Blah 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 blah. blah. Good start.
Come on, this is supposed to be a professional outfit here.
Yeah.
So we're recapping Super Bowl 54, which saw the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the San Francisco 49ers, not without drama. It was a pretty good game. It was very exciting
Awesome Super Bowl.
at times, especially the comeback in the fourth quarter, which our rooting interest got the best outcome we could hope for. And we're excited to talk about that game here this evening. But before I do think, because we haven't done it for a while, we should maybe mention of how you can interact with us or contact us. There's multiple ways you can do that. The best way is probably through the show's email, which is the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox, which is joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. You can also like our pages on Facebook, follow our accounts on Twitter. And if you feel up to it, and are interested in talking with us directly, you can call the Mays Sandwich Shop hotline at 530-563-6297. So, yeah, it was a fun Sunday night last week.
It was.
We previewed the game last Saturday on episode 294. And you predicted the Chiefs to win, and I didn't agree with you, but it's not out of not wanting it to happen.
Right. We established that, like, rooting interest wise, we were on the same page. Prediction wise, we were a little different. But all right, I knew I wasn't going to get my exact score at some point there, but like I didn't feel like I was too far off. I was, a field goal for the Chiefs, I think, and 4 points for the Niners off. I think I said 34-24.
You were right around there.
And so 31-20, not too far off of that.
And to think it was 20-10 with like 7 minutes left to play or something like that.
Yeah, and it was now these always get a little distorted because the Chiefs had the ball at the end of the third into the fourth, but it was 20-7. No,
because it was 10-3 Chiefs at one point.
So, but they were up. They were up big in the fourth quarter, and
they're up 20-10 with 6:56
I think
to
I
play.
sent you this tweet in his last two Super Bowls. Kyle Shanahan's teams
in fourth quarter and overtime.
In the fourth quarter and overtime have been outscored 45 or 46 to nothing.
It's 46 to nothing. Yeah, 46 to nothing. That's not great.
That's hard to do.
I remember turning to you when there was...
And that may be a little unfair in this, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but, it's just an interesting thing to point out. That's absurd.
when there was a round, like the Chiefs had the ball, they had stopped the 49ers, like which they absolutely had to do. Because they needed at least 2 scores,
Right.
at least a touchdown, 2-point conversion, and a field goal to tie the game. So you knew they had to have at least 2 possessions. They're getting the ball back around the 10-minute mark. I don't remember exactly, but I turned to you and I'm like, well, it's Kyle Shanahan. Like, let's see if he's got some Shanahan magic left over from 3 years ago. Just joking because obviously we wanted the Chiefs to win, and we're sitting there watching the fourth quarter just like, oh, man, this one got away from them.
Right, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, the Chiefs, I don't know. When they're down 2 possessions, I'm like, they may only get the ball 2 more times.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
that's all Mahomes needed.
That was nearly the worst one. That was nearly the worst one. Although last week, I think I knocked down every one of the figurines.
You did.
Am I right?
You did. I don't even think I fully set them all up.
No,
yet.
You did not. That's why I
because
looked
I knew
and I was like, yes,
I knew you were coming over.
Yeah, it was
so
a
it was
preemptive.
like, what's the point?
Right. I'm worse than the cats. Like
at times, that's true. They just start hawking up some hairballs, and you'd be right on the same level.
I don't poop in this room, so that
well, not any after that first time. We kind of set some ground
except for that
rules.
one time. No. Man, we got derailed by me slamming into the case.
Well, it's just like, what else could go wrong?
Right. But anyway, yeah, like it. Oh man, it was just an incredible. And obviously, we're biased because of our rooting interest that we already mentioned. But it was an incredible game. I think it was a little magnified by how terrible last year's game was.
It was so bad last year. So very bad.
Not just bad game, but like a bad game between 2 teams that I didn't really want either team to win.
Right.
I just wanted the Patriots to win. Or actually, I wanted them to not win less.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Not really sure how this works.
Right,
but...
yeah. But basically, I just really didn't want the Rams to win because I didn't want them to be that next team and Goff to get one and all of those things. I know that's terrible, but that's like fandom coming through, right? And we embrace that here on the show. Whereas the Patriots winning last year was, and I've mentioned this many times, the Patriots winning was, it changed nothing. What does it do? Like, oh, Brady's the best ever. Most people already had put that in that bag, right? Belichick, greatest coach ever. Most people would already put that in the bag. Like, Patriots fans get to enjoy one. Okay, we've lived this. We've seen this. We've dealt with this. I can handle that. I wasn't ready for the Rams to be in that group too. So because of that, I was more okay with the Patriots winning. This year was the opposite. Like, I really wanted the Chiefs to win. If the Niners would have won, I would have been okay. And honestly, the way it looked like they were going to win, I was specifically okay with it because I didn't. If the Chiefs were going to lose, I didn't want them to lose a heartbreaker. I am firmly in that big.
I'd rather be blown out.
I would rather be blown out than lose on a heartbreaker.
Manning against the Seahawks years ago.
Right, because then you're not left wondering, what if?
Right.
What if?
Which is what the 49ers are feeling right now.
Oh, my gosh.
Because even though they lost by 11, that game was in their pocket.
Just like the Falcons were 2 years ago.
Exactly.
Well, 3 years ago.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think that it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Because I was,
Yesterday
going
was
back.
2 years since the Eagles parade.
Right. Going back
those memories
through,
are popping up on my phone.
Facebook memory and time hop stuff. And I'm just like, oh, wait, Falcons Patriots was 3 years ago? Yeah. And, it makes sense, but it was just so much time.
It makes sense,
but
it can't seem to be right.
Right, because the Eagles was 2 years ago, and neither of those was last year. So the only reasonable explanation is that it was 2 and 3 years ago. But it wasn't like that last year when it was only 1 and 2 years removed. But this year, something about it this year when they were popping up, just like, that can't be right.
Well, it's like, when they keep talking about all these things, like this year with the Niners, and they kept talking about the last time they were in the Super Bowl and how long ago that was. And I'm like, wait, that doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was.
2013 season, right?
Right.
Or 2015 Super Bowl. Which one was it?
I don't know. I feel like it was 2013 Super Bowl, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
So it was 6 to 7 years ago.
Right. Either way, 6 to 7 years ago, and you're like, wait, 2013 was that long ago? And they're like, yeah, it was. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's get to the highlights. Let's get to the highlights and talk about the game a little bit before we start to break down. All right, so Super Bowl 54 was last Sunday evening. We were watching it a week ago at this time. It's probably, I don't know, maybe just exiting halftime, maybe about
Possibly.
this point. But let's take a look, and we could probably watch this whole thing. It's about 8 minutes long, but this is all we're talking about on the show. So we'll see all the highlights. The way the game started, San Francisco looked great, and then the Chiefs buckled down and forced them to settle for a field goal, which was a huge victory for the Chiefs.
Right.
Because 49ers were pretty much
they were marching
doing
right down
whatever
the
they
field.
wanted to do.
Yep.
I was surprised when they would get away from the ground game because, like we said going in,
Right.
that they needed to pound the rock.
And it wasn't necessarily the ground game that you thought. So, like, it was Deebo Samuel and some speedsters around the edge, not so much up the gut.
Right.
But it was still working. Like, so I was surprised to see them kind of voluntarily go away from it. And again, like, they went away from it at times in that drive, and then there were times in the game where they really went away from it, and that definitely comes up big, you know.
The tight ends played a huge role in the game.
Yeah.
Even if for Kittle, it's not exactly the way he had wanted to, or the way I said he would. The biggest thing from him, and we'll see it in a little bit, was right before halftime, he's called for offensive pass interference on a long pass that could have changed the dynamic of the game. Maybe the 49ers getting points before half, and they were also getting the ball to start the second half, but it would not be the case as Kittle got the flag. Now, what did you think of that call?
I think that doesn't get called most of the time, but I think it is offensive pass interference. I think usually when I see that, I'm like, that's offensive pass interference, and it wasn't. Now, if I was rooting for the Niners, I would have been upset, but I was.
But you already made my point for me, not that I'm arguing against you.
Right.
If it's offensive pass interference, it's offensive pass interference, even if they don't always call it.
Right. No, absolutely.
Like, that was by rule. That absolutely is offensive pass interference, and you're going to see it coming up here in a few minutes as we're approaching halftime in the highlights. But I don't want to hear people say it wasn't, because it clearly is. He pushes the defender away from him. That is offensive pass interference.
Right.
So I know Shanahan talked about it for a while post game, and the quotes after the game were about that. I'm like, dude, you can't ignore the fourth quarter. That just happened.
It was interesting. Somebody was talking about how, like, you know, they didn't use the timeout and wasted 40 seconds before they got the ball back there, and he said it's because they didn't want to do something too quick and give the ball back to the Chiefs because they know how dynamic they can be. Yet the play calling in the second half, where at one point they had 20 passes to 10 runs, shows that they're doing nothing but setting it up to give the ball back to the Chiefs more often. How can that be your strategy in the last 2 minutes before the half, and then not your strategy at all coming out of the half?
Right.
Like, that just didn't seem to make sense.
Did they not show the offensive pass interference call? Because here we are in the third quarter.
They did not. They did not.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I definitely thought it was the correct call. It wouldn't have surprised me if it didn't get called, but I thought it was the correct call.
So the 49ers are up 13-10 here in the third quarter, and you think it's the Chiefs got to get something going. They got to get moving. They got to
right. You keep waiting for them to flip the switch like they had in the preseason, in both postseason games.
And then Mahomes gets strip sacked, although he recovers.
Right.
And then coming up here, though, is going to be the interception, I believe.
Right, yeah.
Which it was a bad interception. It's a poor read. I mean, it could be maybe Hill turned the wrong way, but I think they already diagrammed it for us during the game, and they showed Hill was going back to the open area, and Mahomes never readjusted. I don't know if he didn't see the linebacker or what, but it was. I unfortunately for him, I think that was all on Mahomes. Now, thankfully for him and the Chiefs, it didn't rattle him.
Right.
It did not matter. He actually ended up throwing another interception.
It's around this time where people are talking about how, man, he's having a terrible game. Yeah, and then he throws another interception later, and like people are like, a heck of a time to have your worst game, and including me. Like, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, when the 49ers went up, I think. Yeah, here 20-10 with 2.5 minutes left in the third.
I'm thinking they're in trouble.
They're in a lot of trouble. The Chiefs haven't been able to stop them. The offense hasn't done anything. The 49ers are celebrating. They're having a good old time. Here we are, early fourth quarter, and the Chiefs are going to drive a little bit here, but as they get closer and closer to the red zone.
This was a ridiculous play. I thought for sure he had stepped out of bounds.
Mahomes is going to throw another interception now. I believe it was it tipped or was it thrown
it's
slightly behind him?
And the receiver bats it up to him.
So
I think it's Tyreek Hill, but it's behind him, and Tyreek Hill can't really grab it. But this is one of those where, like, they're already in trouble, but they're like, oh, they're in field goal range. Right there it was. Yeah, and he reaches back, and then you're like, oh, man, like, they're in big trouble now. Because I honestly didn't know. So there's almost 12 minutes left. So they're going to get the ball back, but I figured they're going to get the ball back down at least 23-10, and probably half that time gone. Well, you see that's not the case. It's still 20-10, and then they just decide to not cover Tyreek Hill on a double move.
Yeah, probably not the best bet.
Yeah. And that was a 3rd and 15 where Patrick Mahomes is like backing up the whole time and just slings it down the field.
And finally we're going to see Travis Kelce wide open, which how does that ever happen? I don't
especially in tight like that. Okay.
It's either
but then you notice it's only a couple minutes later and they have the ball back again near midfield.
Because the Chiefs defense forced the 49ers to go 3 and out.
And now you start thinking, oh man, this is crazy.
Now they could do, It's 20-17. You only need a field goal to tie.
Right.
And we get to see Sammy Watkins burn Richard Sherman. And I believe he came out and said that Devontae Adams showed him how to do that the week before in a game that didn't matter really to the Packers at the time. They they would have needed a huge comeback to beat the 49ers. But Devontae Adams beat Richard Sherman in a similar way, and Sammy Watkins did there. Now, what do you think about this Damian Williams touchdown?
I think to me, I think
to me, well, I agree with. They called it a touchdown on the field. They didn't have a great angle to necessarily see where the tip of the boy is.
Which is ridiculous, and we talked about this. How do you not have an angle straight down the line in the Super Bowl? Like, I don't understand. I don't. That frustrates me a lot. But, okay, so the Niners get the ball back down 4.
With about, 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes to play?
Yeah, yep. And then, man, they're just bringing the pressure. Man, they just took it to him, and then Damian Williams off to the races.
Yeah, were you surprised that Mahomes got MVP over him?
Yes. When I saw Mahomes' numbers in the 4th quarter, it made more sense to me. Like, because his numbers weren't very good, and then but the 4th quarter numbers and the comeback,
right. The quarterback is always going to get more grief
right.
when they lose and more of the support when they win.
Right.
And if Williams had a bigger first half, I think maybe the full body of work for the Super Bowl would have given it to him.
I agree.
But because Mahomes did so much in the 4th quarter, and granted, so did Williams, because that's when most of this stuff was happening, was in the 4th quarter. I think you would have seen it as a possibility. But I love the quasi-drama surrounding his jersey after the fact, because he went over to Mostert, who had that ridiculous game against the Packers in the NFC Championship game, and was going to be featured for the 49ers because we said, and everyone has said, how the running game needed to be an important part of the game. And he got his touchdown. He got some yardage, but didn't make as big of an impact as I think people expected to see. Right. I know Tevin Coleman was active and played, but he had been banged up from the 2 weeks before. So Mostert, the undrafted guy, and on his 7th team or whatever, they swapped jerseys. They had signed to swap jerseys, and people are like, you might regret that. And I think he went on one of the late night shows and. Mostert said that he would give it back to him.
He.
It's just
like
funny.
I think at first he was saying something like that, and Damian Williams was like, no, I'm not gonna ask for it back. As long as he doesn't sell it, basically. And Mostert, I think, was just in the moment realized I'm.
Didn't he jokingly put out what do you think I can get for this on eBay or something that?
So it was funny. Just kind of looking at it. But, if we were sitting here, well, at this point, but our show last week, which we did on Saturday, we were sitting there saying, that Damian Williams would have the best performance of all the running backs in the game. That would have been a really good sign for Kansas City.
And that's why they play the game. That's why they play 4 quarters. That's why the game doesn't end after the 3rd.
Right.
And just goes to show what
Kyle
can
Shanahan
happen.
hates that.
Yeah, absolutely. The Chiefs seem to love it, though, because
They do.
They've had comeback victories in all playoff games.
Right, and there were some absurd things, and they made some conversions of 3rd and 15 or longer this year. And, like, Patrick Mahomes' numbers when they're, like, in those situations, he has, like, a quarterback rating which is ridiculously high given the situation. All other quarterbacks in those situations, like, throughout the year had a quarterback rating of 0.6 or something like that. And his is, like, 60-something.
Wow.
Like, it's
unreal.
Astronomically better than the average. Like, and it's just unbelievable.
So congratulations to Andy Reid.
Yeah,
winning his
I was
first Super
so happy
Bowl.
for Andy. It was cool to see all the people and how happy they were for
Yeah,
Andy
a lot of people happy for the Andy Reid and for the Chiefs. You know, it had been 50 years since they were there and 50 years since they had won. And it was a big deal for a lot of people. And, you know, we're super happy for Andy Reid, but obviously for a friend of the show, Chad Henne, who now is a Super Bowl champion, which is incredible. He's the first one from Wilson to do it. 3rd time was the charm, thankfully, for him. And the Red and Eagle put out an article saying he was the first from Berks County, first Berks County native to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know that Devlin from Boyertown has won 3 rings with the Patriots. However, he was not born in nor lived in Berks County. He lived in the Montgomery County side of Boyertown, I believe.
Yeah, there's a few school districts around here
that cross over
that are not in one county, which I know for some people is really weird because, like, a lot of places have county-wide school systems. Right. But, like, that's not how it is here. So there are some school districts that are in multiple counties. Twin Valley's one, Boyertown's one.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, those he went to Boyertown High School, which is in Berks County, but he is from Montgomery County.
The best thing about that article and comments on that article, and we're not going to dive into the ridiculousness of a lot of it, but was just the people that showed how, I don't want to say that, how poorly media is handled by the consumers. Yes. Because people immediately are like, what about Devlin? What about the kid from Boyertown? I'm like, if you read the article, it addressed that.
Right.
How about you don't jump at a headline and you read what's in the article?
Right.
You know, and I just like, it's right there.
All the time. It happens all the time.
Oh, no, I know it does. But it's just
I know.
I knew it was going to happen because when I read the headline, my first thought was, oh, they forgot Devlin. And then I read the article and was like, oh, no, they explained it in the article. Because that's generally what you're supposed to do when there's a piece of media, of news, of journalism.
Right. So what you're saying is they write a headline that gets you to want to read it.
Right. That gets you to make you want to pull your hair out because you're like, wait, they forgot something. Let me try to fix that.
And then you read it and you're like,
no, they qualified it.
They know what they're doing.
It's amazing how that happens.
Funny how that works.
So, anyways,
it's almost like this was not the first article they wrote.
Yeah,
another
amazing.
thing that's interesting too is I've read this too is the people who write the articles rarely come up with the headlines.
No, I knew that.
Like, which is funny because the reporter is probably the one who will get a lot of emails and things
absolutely.
like. And they have nothing to do with it.
They have nothing to do with it.
The guy writes an article that explains how this is how it is, and then that's oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, there was one that we got in our group chat the other day. I'm like, that is an awful headline. Now, and this was actually like I considered it terrible journalism because they were implying something that the article didn't back up. And I was like, that's a terrible image and terrible headline because it makes you think one thing when it's not confirmed in the article. It's all conjecture and possibilities, which is annoying, and that is close to, if not clickbait. Or you just start spreading false news, and
Even
that's
better.
Directly on the journalism company. And in this case, was a legitimate outlet. And I was just like, that's bad journalism. That is bad. Go to the corner and think about what you did.
He takes his spray bottle and sprays it at his computer screen.
Stop it.
I'm going to let you sit there and think about what you've done.
So, anyways, all to say, congratulations to Chad Henne for winning the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. We did get to see him during the game. He was shown on the screen multiple times. And actually, someone that pointed that out is a new Instagram account that I found last week that I believe I don't know if you knew of the account, but you had heard of the people.
Yes, I'd heard of the people back in training camp, yes.
So, yeah, apparently over the summer, a group of Kansas City fans created a account known as Henne for Starter, a movement to make Chad Henne the Chiefs' starting quarterback. And it's a group of, I think, college-aged young men, maybe just out. It's early 20s, and they had shirts and stickers made up, and they actually have a news article on KansasCity.com all about them. And they got to meet Chad, I believe, like you said, during training camp or the preseason. He signed a few of their shirts, so Chad obviously knows about them, and I don't even remember how I stumbled upon them, but I was like, that is an interesting account that I need to follow. And, well, stay tuned. Maybe a little collaboration happening. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. But they've been a fun follow over the last 2 weeks. And congratulations to them with their pro team winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It's always a blast.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, right. You would know. Hopefully sometime in the future I'll find out too. But just to wrap it up, we had a picture from Mrs. Henne that she allowed me to post on the Wilson sites after she posted it of Chad with his daughter, and what a great time, great picture on the field after the game, Super Bowl champ. So congratulations to Chad and the Chiefs. Pinnacle of the sport. You can't get any higher.
So listen, I understand some people were like frustrated with not frustrated, but just like, okay, the NFL 100 thing, like, it's been all season. They play it up, like, oh, whatever. But it is cool that like their championship gear has the 100 like emblem on it too with the Super Bowl. That's just it's cool. But
you mean like this?
Yes, like that. Yes, like that.
Yeah, well, it's cool. It's Super Bowl. It's too bad it didn't work out to be like Super Bowl 50. Something really Super Bowl 50.
Although
100.
I feel like I understand why they didn't want it to be just Super Bowl L.
Right.
But like
it breaks that.
I wish they would have just kept with it. If they don't make it a big deal, like no one would have made a big deal out of it. But like, I don't know.
Although that does bring up an interesting point because individually, I like the Super Bowl logos of the last decade with the Lombardi Trophy. I think it looks really cool. However, when you look at that, they did basically the same thing for 10 years now. I'm like, it's time to move on.
No, I get that.
I really liked the original design, and I do think when they went away from Super Bowl L to mark 50 and they went to the numbers 50, that was fine. But you're sticking with it now, and it's time to move on because the Super Bowl logo, even though if it was kind of crazy and ridiculous, it always invoked the area that was hosting.
Yeah.
And they usually would get someone with local ties or a local designer or someone from the locality would have input onto the colors or the design. And I just think I'm starting to miss that now.
No, I understand. Yeah, I feel like we
haven't had one since Super Bowl 44? Was that the last one?
Probably.
Which would have been No, wait. XL was 40. So XLIV?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
XLIV. I don't know. Super Bowl logos are super cool to me. So the last 10 years has just kind of been not.
I feel like that would be an awesome topic for the guy who does like the UniWatch stuff.
Oh, he's done it.
Yeah,
he's done it.
Of course he
has. Yeah, and I'm going to pull up here. Let's see if I can find. I'm pretty sure it's pretty easy to get. This is one of my favorite reference sites. So, sportslogos.net. Chris Creamer does an amazing job. Has all of them in super high res too, and they're not watermarked or anything like that. So you can take a look at so many logos from so many years, and these are probably gonna.
So it's interesting because like I think back to some of these, I'm like, man, I wonder how you go about getting. He probably had to create them, or someone had to create the files for the old ones because they weren't digital.
Right.
Files
Yeah. I don't know. Someone made them. I don't know if he made them or what, but they're really well done. You can see at the beginning, most of it was just writing the word Super Bowl, except for Super Bowl I, because it wasn't known as Super Bowl I. I'm guessing he probably is getting it from the tickets. Would be my guess. Tickets and programs.
Yeah.
So they don't start to get rid of these freaking they don't start to get really, colorful and change in designs until I'd say about maybe Super Bowl 12, but even then they just kind of get a
I would
little
say
nuts
9 was a little different with just the little extra flair.
Yeah, but really here at 13 and 14, you're starting to see a little bit, multiple colors, different design aspects. Here they changed the font of Super Bowl, but then really here when you get to 17, things really start to change. And they did stick with red, white, and blue for a while. And I feel like the first one I remember was maybe this one. Is this or this one?
So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a big fan of Super Bowl 19 logo.
You don't like 19. This one?
Yeah, not a big fan.
No, that wouldn't be one of my favorites. That's a California Super Bowl.
It looks like a diner sign to me.
I really like this one because of the incorporation with the roses. That's cool. I like the football aspect of this, but I think it kind of looks like a fast food logo.
Yeah. I kind of like the one next to it, the one in the...
This one?
No, sorry, the other way, the peaches. Sorry.
Okay, you're over here. Yeah, I do. That's where I really like, because these were all red, white, and blue.
Right.
Like red, white, and blue from... essentially, other than these two here, 81, 82, from 79 through, what year is that? Like 93, I want to say?
Yes, that's 93.
So like 14, 15 Super Bowls, like 13 of them were basically just red, white, and blue. Then they finally start to add more colors to it here with the Georgia. This one is in the Georgia Dome. Right. That's super cool. I do like that one where they start to add the local flavor. They kind of started with the Pasadena one, but they got the red, white, and blue in there.
But incorporating roses is a fairly easy concept. I feel like for like a championship.
Then this one here, we go into Florida, and then this one I definitely remember because this screams Arizona to me. Like just the way it's designed.
Yep.
And I was looking forward to this because you get the 3 X's.
Yep.
You get Super Bowl 30. It's just cool.
It's funny because I feel like you can look at some and you can tell which ones are New Orleans. Like which is cool though. Like which is cool.
But yeah, that's what I like about it. I certainly remember
I
this
definitely
one.
remember that one.
This is the San Diego. This one too. Like this one, I love this one from Miami. I think that one's really, really creative. I always will like 35 just because I was there. This is actually an alternate one that they ended up using after 9/11.
Yeah,
you can actually click on it and it will take you to the original. Oh, you might have to click on. I might have to go up here and go into alternate Super Bowl logos. Or you know what? It's at the bottom. Oh, good. Ads are gonna load. Here we go. Where are we here? No. I know they have it. No, this is special events. I'm pretty sure they had it somewhere. I've seen it. But maybe it's not on this site. I thought it was. But anyways, all these ads. All right. But here, just like look at this one for San Diego with the lighthouse, the water, super cool.
That's
and then
a cool
Houston, they got the galaxy and the stars. Just the planet rings. Very cool. Jacksonville.
It almost looked like the Astros logo with an asterisk. I mean, that's pretty good foreshadowing.
Very good. 16 years ahead of its time. The Jacksonville one, the bridge and the water. And then you're getting to the point where they're starting to, they still have different colors, but they're getting closer to keeping the same fonts.
Right.
Here for 40.
Boo.
Did you know Jerome Bettis was from Detroit?
That was a Super Bowl that literally led me into the streets to scream, and I didn't stand out because everybody was screaming.
Right.
I was living in Pittsburgh at the time. Everybody's out in the streets screaming. We're on the south side. I'm just screaming, but it fit in, and but I wasn't screaming for joy. I was just letting out my pent up rage.
Oh, now I'm clicking on things. All right, let's. So I do really like the Super Bowl. What is that? 41. Yeah, Super Bowl 41, which I believe is the one that John played in. I really like that because they use the pylon as the eye. I think that's cool. Here they got the entire state in the logo.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't really notice that.
And here they got the yard lines, kind of almost like shadowy end zone type. Very cool. Field goal post in
I like that
44.
One. That one's cool.
And that was the last one because look at all of them since then.
Right.
Now, they did incorporate the stadium on all the ones from 45, 46, 47, 48. 49 and 50. So for 5 years they did it with the stadium. But I mean, look, it's literally not different other than the stadium and the Roman numerals for 4 years.
It's like that. It's like the person who did this retired, and they hired somebody, and they're like, "Here,
they're like,
just create one that we can use for the next like 8 years."
And then in Super Bowl 50, they added the gold trim and the giant number 50. Still have the stadium, but then with 51, they start just basically changing the colors.
Right.
And that's it. So you went from red to light blue to darker regular blue, and then to a hybrid that has the gold trim with, what is associated with Miami and the aqua. So what will they do next year? Are they going to do LV with the Lombardi?
See, it also is weird to me because I feel like we see so many logos where the trophy would be a letter I. Like it would be an I in the logo.
Yeah.
So it almost looks like 51 is supposed to be 52.
Right.
And 52 is 53. Like I mean,
I think
know
they
it's not,
avoid it by not ever using it as an I
correct,
yet.
Correct.
And they make it so much bigger. If it was the same size, I think there would be a major issue. Why is Super Bowl 55 not in Las Vegas? Super Bowl LV, Las Vegas. Like the stadium's just opening this
Probably
year.
because they're afraid the stadium won't be ready in time.
Yeah, right. Well, the San Francisco one that took how long to host? The Minnesota one.
Yeah.
Now the New York.
So
one
where is it next year?
It might be in Tampa.
Okay.
I think it might be in Tampa.
Which is one where you feel like, again, this is me not really knowing too much about it, but like how Tampa is an interesting place for one. I feel like that's where you went.
Yeah, that's the one I was at.
Right. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's cool, but like.
We commuted from Orlando.
Right. I don't feel like Tampa is all that different than like Jacksonville. You know what I mean? Like, and I know it is a little bit. It's further south, but the stadium's not all that new anymore.
Yeah.
You look at the other places. Now, Miami Stadium isn't new, but the amount of
put
upgrades
in so much
it
money,
might as well be new.
Yeah, essentially.
Arizona is a relatively new stadium.
Yeah.
Dallas and Houston are newer stadiums.
I was right. Tampa Bay, Raymond James for 2021. Then in Inglewood at SoFi for 2022.
So Las Vegas isn't even on the books yet.
No, Glendale.
You know what? I wonder if they'll, like in the next ones that they announce, if it'll probably be on there. I wonder if they didn't announce it because they're still in Oakland. And they were waiting to award them a Super Bowl until after they left.
So I don't know if it says here when the next one. The soonest.
My guess is they'll maybe announce at the next one or after that.
I'm just trying to think like how far ahead. Like here, they're 5 years ahead, or they were until.
But I feel like they release them in like groups. They don't like it's not always like. So I feel like at the Inglewood one, they'll probably release like the next 3 or something like that.
Right. I think I don't know if they will do. I don't know what time of year they generally do this. It's kind of like.
See, I thought they do it around the time of the Super Bowl. Like I thought it's in one of those.
So we might hear next year where the next few are, or is it one of those things where every 2 years they award 2 more sites or something like that?
Could be.
This is my expectations. 2025 is going to be 2025 and 2026 will be Las Vegas or Dallas.
Yeah.
Because it's honestly shocking to me that Dallas has only hosted one since Jerry World opened.
Yeah.
And I know it was a disaster weather-wise, but that was...
And they didn't have enough seats.
That was like a problem that you never could have imagined to have an ice storm in Dallas.
Right. And the chances of that happening again are slim to none. And they've gone to Minnesota. So
right. And New York.
Right.
And Detroit. Right. So, and I know some of this was before and after this, but... It's obviously going back to Dallas. Because why not? There's how many 90,000+ seats available there?
Right. And it's indoor. So, like, while weather affects things outside, it doesn't affect the game itself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's definitely going back to AT&T Stadium. It hasn't been there since 2011. Wow. You think it goes back to Indianapolis at some point? Because Lucas Oil's not that old. And
Lucas Oil's a fun stadium.
It hosts the Big Ten championship.
Well, Las Vegas is hosting the Pac-12 championship next year. So, like, that's 2 months before the Super Bowl would be. Like,
so, but that's my expectation. Las Vegas and Dallas, I think, are the next 2 up. Yeah. That would be my expectation.
It wouldn't surprise me for LA to get another one relatively quickly. Like, not.
You mean back to Levi's?
Yeah.
So,
no. Is Levi's going to be the one in LA?
that's the one in Santa Clara.
No, I mean
You're talking about the Inglewood
yeah,
one.
Yeah. I think like Inglewood will be within 10 years. Like I think it's going to go
Inglewood's
back
in
there.
2022 if they do
Right.
Dallas, Las Vegas.
It wouldn't surprise me like 2026.
Well, see, I think Levi's Santa Clara, because by then they're already
right.
a decade past
You're right.
when they last. So, but then you start talking about that's the same thing for Minneapolis and the same thing for
Well,
Mercedes-Benz.
and Houston gets mixed in there because they're a big one.
Houston,
in New Orleans.
Houston hasn't hosted at this point. It'll have been a decade. It'll be 2017 was the last time. Which sounds so close now, sitting here in 2020. But we're saying Dallas and Las Vegas are 25, 26.
And you look at Atlanta has their new stadium now. So. Yeah, I just, I mean, I know some of them have been hosting, but.
Do you think they ever go back to the Rose Bowl, or is that those days done because of the size?
I think those days are done now that they have a new stadium in LA. If they're going to be in LA, it's going to be at the NFL stadium.
Yeah, it would be cool, but I agree with you. I don't.
If you were going to, I think it would be cool for like 75, or like one of the cool years, like I think that would be
right. No,
fun,
I agree with you. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but so real quickly here at the end, the last 10, 15 minutes or so, just quick remarks on the 2019 season that just culminated last weekend, and maybe some really early look ahead towards the 2020 season.
Okay.
So what do you take away from the 2019 season outside of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl? What else stood out to you?
All right, so I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit, and I'm going to give you my biggest disappointment.
Sure.
Now, this is a little different because I feel like you and I called it, but I feel like the biggest disappointment was by far the Browns. In terms of the hype they were getting. Now, that's a little distorted because, like I said, you and I were all over that. Now, we didn't necessarily hit right on what we thought exactly was going to happen, but we were right with that.
We were right to doubt them. And
so I think they were the biggest disappointment. If I have to go with the biggest surprise, my biggest surprise would have been the Tennessee Titans with how effective they were. I feel like, to me, they were a bigger surprise with their success than. Let me take that further. If you would have told me that they were going to be that successful and it wasn't Mariota, like, I don't know that I would have taken that. Right. Like,
that's certainly shocking.
I feel like I would have been more likely to be like, oh, he makes a stride this year and it gets them over the hump and they have a deep run. But,
I think this was I don't want to attribute to someone that I don't know for sure, but someone said that imagine how bad of a situation or a coach has to be for someone who was not injured and did not miss time last year to win comeback player of the year when you had a Super Bowl quarterback return from a devastating injury to lead the team to the Super Bowl and not win comeback player of the year. Ryan Tannehill beat Jimmy Garoppolo for comeback player of the year. Ryan Tannehill was not out injured for the entire season last year. Well, sorry. Garoppolo only missed the last like 10 or 12 weeks, right?
Right.
It was early
like
season.
week 3 or 4.
It was 3 or 4. That's what I'm saying. So he missed a majority of last season.
Right.
Came back, led his team to the Super Bowl, 7 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl. Now, I know they vote on it before the Super Bowl. Right. But Tannehill didn't start until midway through the year and won the award.
His team was the number 1 seed in the conference. That is interesting. And overall trend, I feel like you need to be able to. Your defense needs to be able to make plays at key times. You don't need a dominant defense. I know that sounds contradictory because, like, the Niners' defense was outstanding and it helped get them to the Super Bowl. And
it helped get them within 7 minutes of winning the Super Bowl.
But look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs' defense, and this has been.
Well, we went over the stats last week.
But I feel like this has happened almost every year in Kansas City, and they just haven't been able to do it enough to get over the hump until this year. Their defense doesn't look that great, but they make plays at key times. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of
the Saints.
well, even it reminds me of the Colts when they were getting
right.
to the Super Bowl.
You're right.
Like they'd have a bunch of sacks, but they would score a ton of points. And they'd give up yards and they'd give up points, but like they would make plays. And Bob Sanders back there and stuff like that. Like,
well, I was thinking the same thing with Drew Brees. A decade ago when the Saints were all of a sudden this offensive force with Drew Brees, their defense couldn't stop anyone. And then the year they won the Super Bowl, I think they led the league in turnovers and takeaways. Like if you get the ball back, prevent the other team from having it, good things are going to happen. And the Saints have never had a dominant defense in back-to-back seasons.
I think underrated aspect to the Super Bowl was the way the Kansas City offensive line stood up against the front.
They were getting pushed around for a while,
they were,
and then all of a sudden it clicked.
But like, man, and like, unbelievable. Like, because that was the key. If San Francisco was good, if their front four are going to wreck your defensive line and quarterback, you don't have a shot. But they were able to get him out of it, and they were able to make him, give him enough time, and Mahomes is going to make you pay. That's another thing, man. Like, I know I don't want to jump on that bandwagon, but like, because they named a bunch of them that got there early in their career and have never got back.
Yeah.
But like, he's fun to watch, man. He's fun to watch. Yeah. Wow. I don't know if you saw did you see the thing where he threw the football off of the bus in the parade and the guy's running and just gets trucked by a parking meter?
I did see that, yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate. So,
but those will be like my biggest takeaway is you need the offensive weapons and you need a defense that can make key plays at key times. You don't have to be the dominant defense all year.
How about, all right, I put you on the spot for that. I'll put myself on the spot for the next thing. 3 things I think, like Peter King version.
Okay, yeah.
What's going to happen.
I love those. That part of them.
What's going to happen in 2023. I'll do 3 things. Okay. We know there's always turnover when it comes to the playoffs, nearly close to, if not more than 50%. It fluctuates around that number, 40 to 60%. You see that much change from year to year. I think one of those changes will be, and I don't know that it's necessarily through a division championship, but I think at least a wild card. I think the Atlanta Falcons make it back to the playoffs. Why do I think that? Because I think they struggled at the beginning with some unlucky issues and some issues with play calling. Once that got rectified, we saw that they were able to do, including beating the San Francisco 49ers at Levi Stadium, which was for the first real big red flag for me about the 49ers.
Yeah.
But I think
we talked about it.
It may have said more about the Falcons than it did about the 49ers.
Right. They dug themselves too deep of a hole.
And they couldn't climb out of it because they went 1-8 in their first 9
and
or something.
And that one
like
was against the Eagles. But.
Never forget. So I think the Falcons are going to make the playoffs as part of the 2020 season. Second, and I don't think this is as huge a leap as maybe it sounds, I don't think the 49ers make the playoffs next season.
You teased that last week.
I don't, and maybe it's me going after the trend of Super Bowl losers not making the playoffs, but I also think they massively overachieved versus what's on their roster. We kind of talked about this last week. When I look at it on paper, the Chiefs to me, are more talented than the 49ers. I am maybe undervaluing some 49ers, but I think that they were, it was kind of lightning in the bottle this year. They got other than the last 7 minutes of the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, they got the correct play calling and the correct packages, the correct coaching at the right moments to take advantage of matchups and situations and opponents. Well, I don't see that happening again next year, and I think the 49ers are this year's or next year's version of the Rams from this year.
Right. Right.
Which
and
same
not necessarily a terrible team, but but that's part of it. The Rams, many would expect them to not have the same type of year next year as they had this year.
I think the 49ers obviously have a lot of talent, especially along the defensive line. I don't know if I'm fully sold on Garoppolo, and I know he's now, he's played in the Super Bowl, but I take Mahomes over him every single time.
Yeah.
It's not even up for debate.
Right.
So while I'm not abandoning hope for him, to me, I need to see more, and I think there's a lot of people that agree with me, but I think the 49ers missed the playoffs next year. So that's number 2.
All right.
Where do I want to go with number 3? I could talk about the Chiefs and whether or not I think they'll be back. Maybe not necessarily if they're going to win, but do they win the AFC again? I could talk about the Patriots and if the dynasty is definitely over, or if Tom Brady is going to be back with the Patriots. I don't know that I want to touch any of them. So, I'll do one more and a bonus because I want to talk about my team a little bit. So my third one, though, that I think that one of the NFC Championship game participants will be the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
I like Dalvin Cook. I think if they can finally, and I know this is a big if, get Kirk Cousins to perform at a very good level rather than being great to awful, as he tends to, kind of fluctuate up and down, as we saw an incredible performance from the Vikings at the Saints and then did nothing against the 49ers. I think if they can get more consistent play from the quarterback, that they have enough around him to at least make the NFC Championship game. After a 2-year absence from that game, I think they make it back next year. My bonus one about my team is, obviously, I think talent-wise, on paper, they're going to be much better. They will perform admirably. They will not challenge for a division title, nor do I think they actually get close to a wild card. I think they're in store for another 5 or 6 win season. It'll just be a little bit more of a consistent rather than be awful for the first half of the season and then average the second half. I think it'll be mostly average the whole year, where you're thinking 6 or 7 wins. But they were 5-11 this year, which shocked a lot of people. But I think if you go back and listen to us, we said that they're a 4 or 5 win team. If they hadn't started 1-8 or 0-7, and their first 2 games they hadn't gotten absolutely obliterated by the Ravens and Patriots, by the way.
Right.
And then they beat. The Dolphins completely changed the playoffs when they beat the Patriots in Week 17. By the way.
Yeah.
People don't think the Chiefs would have won the Super Bowl if the Dolphins didn't beat the Patriots.
Chiefs would have not gotten a bye, would have been playing in the first week, would not have had home field advantage. Everything changes.
Everything changes. So, you're welcome. But I think the Dolphins are a 5 to 7 win team next year. I'm hoping 6 or 7 to show some improvement. Hopefully they get their quarterback of the future. Ryan Fitzpatrick will be back, and I think will start most of next year, if not all of it. I don't know if it'll be Tua. I hope it is. I'm not sold on Joe Burrow, and I don't know that I want to dabble with Justin Herbert or Jordan Love. So if they're going to draft Tua at 5 or trade up to 3 or 4 to get him, I'm fine with that, but he needs to sit for the year, and I think that's the angle that they're taking. I love Tua as a prospect, and I hope for him personally and for whatever team drafts him, I hope that his medical checks out and that he's fully recovered. But there's too many other holes. The Dolphins got so much from guys that probably should be playing in the XFL and not the NFL. But I think it shows that the Dolphins made the perfect choice of coach.
They've got the right
and
hire.
Even he is not afraid to cast aside people he's been with for a while to find the right fitter to improve the team. And he did it during the preseason. Now he did it after the season. He's surrounding himself with guys that he thinks will better the team, and I'm all for that. I was super happy a year ago when they hired Brian Flores, and I am probably more excited about him being there now. So, that's my 3 things I think plus a little bonus there for Dolphins fans that I know listen.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Anything to add about your Eagles before we sign off? What are you thinking about next year?
So I think the Eagles will be better next year, and I still don't know if they win the division. Does that make sense? I think the Eagles could be a 10-win or 11-win wild card with the Cowboys being the division champ.
Looking at the stats, I just can't believe that Dallas didn't win the division this year. But
right,
as my dad points out, they got a new coach.
Yeah,
I don't know that they'll have a new quarterback. They got to figure out what they're doing with Prescott. But I think
pay him $50 million a year.
But like with most Cowboys quarterbacks, especially in this viewership area, I believe Dak is underrated here. He may be overrated elsewhere, but I believe he's underrated here in this market.
Dak is not the issue, I feel like, for them.
Well, now you're going to find out. I mean, we're going to find out. And that's maybe why they're dabbling with maybe franchise tagging him or doing a shorter term deal. But they got to figure that out. But the Cowboys have a lot of talent, and they should be better.
I feel like franchising him, it is a short-term solution in the literal sense. But I feel like, man, they're walking in because are they not? Like, people will expect them. Like, the expectation is a Super Bowl championship next year for them, right? Like, that's the expectation in Dallas. Like, I'm not saying that's how it should be, but like, so basically, you're saying the expectation here is to win the Super Bowl. And if we win the Super Bowl, so like, if it goes according to plan, we will now have to pay Dak. Like, look at what you would have to pay him now. Think about what you would have to pay him if they go out and win the Super Bowl this year.
Didn't he turn down $30 million a year already?
Supposedly, yeah. Now there was I did see a lot of like we never got the terms of that, like knowing like what the guarantee money is, which is the key.
What's the upfront money? What is that? The average value? Is it the per year value?
Well, you look at like Goff and Wentz are both over $100 million in their guaranteed money. There's no way it's gonna be less than that, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Kirk Cousins got like what, $90 million guaranteed or something, $85 million guaranteed.
No, yeah, he's. Like, I mean, you're looking at, I would say, easily 120, 130 million guaranteed.
I did hear an interesting thing this week that they thought would be an interesting aspect to this to extend some of that window in terms of when you can win, because everybody looks right now as you got to win like on Mahomes where they have him on his rookie deal. Would be to keep the salary cap intact, but for quarterbacks and only quarterbacks, only a certain percentage goes against your salary cap hit.
I don't know. I mean, I understand it, but I don't know if I agree with it.
Right, I don't know either. It was just an interesting thing that I just wasn't really sure. I didn't know. Like, it was just interesting to me. But because, part of me is like, if you don't want to pay them, if they're not worth it, don't pay them. You know what I mean? Like, but it's easy for me to say that. Yeah, but like, if the Cowboys don't think that Dak is the guy, well, then don't pay him. You know?
No matter what, you're going to take a risk. You either risk that you're overpaying him and you're caught down the line having an issue, or you let him go and then he is that. And you know.
In this same conversation that I was listening to, it was on the radio. They were talking. They're like, but if he was available, they're like, because they were talking about that whole rumor, like, well, what if Tom Brady went to Dallas? And they said, and the person said, New England would swoop up Dak Prescott in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And that is not something I want to happen. I do not want Dak to go.
No, I don't want him to have a 10-year career in New England then.
Right. Because look what he did with Jason Garrett as his coach. Imagine what he did with Bill Belichick as his coach.
Stop.
And then Mike Gesicki signs there.
No, what worries me is that they're going to do something in the draft this year, and they're going to grab like Herbert or Love or like Jalen Hurts, and they turn him into like this uber prospect.
Oh gosh.
I mean, it looks like we avoided one with Garoppolo, because if Garoppolo can do that in San Francisco, imagine what he would have done in New England.
It was a bit of revisionist stuff, but like somebody said, Bill always gets rid of guys. Bill would never get rid of a guy that he knows is the guy. And it was like Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo's numbers didn't necessarily play out that way, but like it was just like he missed a couple plays in the fourth quarter, and like they were like, "Oh, see, Bill would have never gotten rid of a guy that would have made those plays." And I'm like, "That's a bit much."
It wasn't his decision. It wasn't Bill's decision. There's that. I mean, if you can, maybe you don't buy into that article at all, but that was a Tom Brady and Robert Kraft decision. Right. Tom Brady said, "I want him gone. I don't want to be looking over my shoulder." And Robert Kraft said, "Okay." And Bill Belichick was angry about it.
Right.
And if you don't want to buy into that expose that came out a few years ago,
I believe that.
Fine. I think there's a lot more truth there than negatives or falsehoods.
Which is all part of that. It's really interesting to see what happens up there this offseason.
And there was much to do about something relating to his Super Bowl ad, which we kind of call, we're like, this is probably an advertisement. Right. And we talked about maybe he's going to try to one-up everyone and make an announcement about it during the game. He didn't do that. It was an ad for Hulu. But it also wasn't a confirmation. I mean, he says in the commercial, "I'm not going anywhere."
Right, but he means football. He's playing football.
Right, yeah, he's playing football.
Which is already told us he wants to play.
Right. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're only, we should know within the next 4 weeks because free agency starts, I believe, in 5 weeks, and we're gonna have a resolution by then.
Yep.
Because if he hits that open market, you can hope and wish all you want, and maybe he'll give the Patriots a chance to match. But if he hits that open market, there's going to be 5 to 10 teams going after him.
Right.
I mean, you already heard about the Chargers, the Raiders, the Dolphins,
Chargers,
the Cowboys.
Chargers make sense to me in the sense of they think they have the pieces. But if you're Tom Brady, now I know he's the ultra competitor, but why would you go to the same division that the Super Bowl champions are in?
Well, he's also a California guy.
I know.
49ers. Then they traded Garoppolo back to the Patriots. We're right back here all over again.
It becomes an interesting thing. And actually, the same radio was talking about that, and they were saying there's no way that Tom Brady would let if he went to the Niners, there's no way he would let the Niners or the situation have it that Garoppolo goes back, because if Garoppolo goes back and is successful, that would look
bad
even worse on
him.
him. He's like he would he's that kind of guy that would make them trade him somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. Well,
be interesting.
We got to our hour mark. We're going to wrap it up here. So appreciate everyone tuning in. One thing that I've been wanting to mention for a long time, I think I may have mentioned a few weeks ago, if you do listen to this after the fact on a podcast aggregator like Apple Podcasts or Google Play, we're on SoundCloud, and I think we even have a station on Spotify. So anywhere that the audio can be, ranked and reviewed, we'd appreciate, leaving us a 5-star review and some comments, and let us know what you like. And you can always do so via email as well. We appreciate that, and we'll read it on the show. But it would help us gain a little bit more notoriety if you would like, share, rank, review, any and everywhere, social media, and especially on the podcast locations like Apple and Google. So anything else to share? Any shout-outs, anything to add before we go?
I don't think so. Just happy the Chiefs won.
Yep.
Hopefully the Eagles get back there next year.
We have episode 296 coming up next weekend. We are approaching our 300th episode, and actually between episodes 295 and 296 this week is the 9th anniversary of the show. February 11th is when Justin and I came up with the idea, and our first show was on February 20th, 2011.
I know we've talked about this. We don't talk about it as much anymore, about how we were sitting in a very different room, but we were passing a microphone back and forth.
And it was one of those stick microphones that came with computers in the early mid 2000s.
Yeah.
It was, how far we've come.
Things have changed.
I mean, we have the same number of listeners, but we definitely look a little bit more professional. So.
Yeah.
I haven't checked the Blog Talk Radio numbers, but our old shows still get a bunch of listens every so often. I go back and see how many tens of thousands of listens that those shows had, and I know most of it is after the fact, not live, but we appreciate you whenever you're listening. Of course, because we do this as a sports show talking about what things happened like today or last week, they're not exactly the best content 5 years from now.
Right.
But if you're listening 5 years from now, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. They just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how that Patrick Mahomes thing turns out.
Yeah, how that turned out.
Or the 3 things you think.
Or where's Tom Brady playing football? Is he still playing football?
We laughed now. We'll be crying in 5 years.
I hope you enjoyed the new podcast intro. It changed it completely. We've been, I think, for 3 or 4 years, used the one with the Penn State, the Flyers, Phillies, which was a lot of fun. It got really long last year. I added too much Patriots audio. I don't know why I decided to do that. So cut it down
for punishment
here, and hopefully you enjoyed that, and we'll be hearing that for at least the next year because I'm not changing it. So, all right. For Justin Raffauf, I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Tune in every Sunday for the latest sports discussions from Joe and Justin. Each episode is available live
on Facebook Live
and can be downloaded or streamed on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can interact with Joe and Justin on Facebook and Twitter, and stay up to date with the guys at joemaysandjraff.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is part of the JMNJR Radio Network. For more info, visit jmnjrradio.com.